This is Go Powercat publisher Tim Fitzgerald, and we appreciate you listening to the Powercat podcast. You can now subscribe to our podcast with iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, among many others. Or you can just come to GoPowercat.com and use the Megaphone.fm player. And remember, K-State fans, you can get 30% off an annual subscription to GoPowercat.com. Complete, independent, professional coverage of Kansas State sports with analysis and commentary you will find nowhere else. Now here's the Powercat podcast.
The following is a Spirit Street production. You've discovered your link to the Powercat podcast, presented by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. It's the Powercat podcast. And now, let's go to the Spirit Street Studios. Here's your host, Go Powercat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to another summer edition of the Powercat podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Riley Gates, Zach Carlson, your friendly hosts. There's three S's in there.
Host can be a Z.
It kind of sounds like one.
Bison. Hosts.
There is one guaranteed way to blow up a podcast question thread at Wabash Station, our premium message board. Tell them Ryan Wallace will be on in the second segment to answer questions. Give us some recruiting questions. Man. So we've got a first segment of your questions about other stuff related to K-State sports. Wally will be on in the second segment to answer your questions from Wabash Station about football recruiting, because what a month it has been. 11.
Oh, you wanted him to answer football recruiting questions.
What, did you ask him about?
I thought you just wanted to get – I thought Wally was doing the overtime and we were doing the football recruiting questions.
That would work well. I would be outstanding at that. And then we'll have the overtime, because the overtime's fun and it's cool. A couple things I want to get into. First of all, we are now over at Megaphone.fm. That is our home base for our podcast. We will be leaving Libsyn and maybe SoundCloud. I'm not sure on that one quite yet. I think SoundCloud can be integrated into Megaphone, but I'm not seeing it on our interface. One of the training videos discussed SoundCloud, but I'm not seeing it on our 24/7 sports interface. So I'm going to inquire about that. But if you're a regular listener to the podcast, I know a lot of you just go through the website, and that's great. That works. You're listening off of Megaphone when you do that, because that's the embed we use. But for example, if you would like it delivered to your phone, of course, you can do iTunes or whatever it's going to be called, Apple Podcasts. And sign up there. And there's a bunch of other avenues down which you can travel to get our podcast, including Stitcher, which is the one I'm using on my phone. And they have a great selection of other podcasts. It's a provider of numerous podcasts, including ours, but there's other ones out there. So you can just sign up right there. If you go click the podcast link across our top bar, you can get to the podcast and always stay up to date. Also, I keep forgetting to mention at the top of the show that we are having a 30% discount on all annual subscriptions. For right now, it's going to stick around as they continue to test it and see what that does. And, you know, it might be a good time to go ahead and sign up because you've missed a lot of football recruiting coverage. You know, the way you cover football recruiting has changed so much. I mean, back when your dad, Brian, was doing recruiting, being the first to break a signing or a commitment, was a big deal. I mean, and we took great pride in the fact that we were the source for that. But players now are empowered to do it on their own Twitter, and we try to respect them and let them do it on their own Twitter before putting it out there to ourselves. So that being the first isn't always, isn't important at all in recruiting anymore. But doing the best job covering it is, and I think Ryan Wallace, when he does his free content, it's good, it's professional, and then he delves into some great analysis. And you jumped into the analysis by breaking down the first 10 commitments, looking at them. of the month, and then 11th one came before the story was hardly open.
I was so mad. It was I was like, oh, this is amazing content. Like I had lost track at that point. I'm like, hey, I bet you the average fan had lost track. I'll let everybody know who's all committed.
Bring on the cats.
Bring on the cats. Woo! Yeah, oh, my goodness.
It's crazy. And if you're enjoying the state of football recruiting at Kansas State, or simply overwhelmed by the state of football recruiting because there's so much of it after years of not having much news at this time of year, get to the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. They'll settle you down. They got products that'll make you visit your happy place and make you smile more. Unless you're an angry
Or
drunk.
cry more, really. I mean, you get it mad.
Whatever. It'll be more so of whatever you do.
Teach their own.
Yeah, if you want to mope, it'll help you mope more. The Fridge. Corner of this and that.
Helped me hit a few doubles in my softball league on Sunday. Guys, I'm kind of good at softball. I'm not going to lie.
What position do you play?
They put me in right center the first week. I was first base the next week. Last week we had too many people, so I didn't play the field. Like, I don't have a consistent position.
You were the extra hitter?
Everybody hits.
Everybody hits. Is that a new rule?
It's a rule. I don't know if it's new.
They used to have
It's new to me.
11 people in the batting lineup because you had an extra hitter.
Oh, maybe that's... How many people do we have? I don't know how many people we have in the batting lineup. I just know we had too many people to play the field.
Yeah.
I hope your press box nameplate for the first game says good at softball, where Go Powercat would be.
Please do not do that at the person that I know is listening to this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to talk about real quick before we get into the questions from Wabash Station is I finally found time to listen to Shannon Terry, his interview with Clay Travis on Clay's new podcast, Winners and Losers, and I think Shannon was the second in that series he's doing. Jason Whitlock was the first. I'm going to go back and listen to Jason because I find him to be a fascinating media personality because I don't think Jason's overwhelmingly talented as a writer, but I think he's very talented as a communicator. I know that's kind of nuanced there, but I never thought he was a great journalist, so to speak. Jason was the shock jock of the columnists, and Joe Poznansky was the soulful, informational guy. They were a great team, and Whitlock's gone on to some pretty big things. But anyhow, I listened to the podcast with Shannon Terry. We don't know who Shannon is. He's the founder and now still chief executive officer, I don't know what his exact title is, of 24/7 Sports. He founded Alliance Sports, which eventually bought Rivals.com. This is the most amazing thing that came out of it. Rivals paid him $3 million for Alliance Sports. Alliance Sports was primarily the Southeast Conference, but they also did Texas and Texas A&M because this was, this was the 90s. No, this was early 2000s when he got bought out. But, and a couple ACC schools. They had a nice southern network where football, he admitted it, that I think his exact quote was, I think we all understand that there's less to do in Birmingham, Alabama than Manhattan. Now, I don't think he meant this Manhattan, but I think that's still true.
I would agree.
Okay. So they paid him $3 million. And within months, Rivals entered bankruptcy because they were out there paying $3 million for things.
Not great.
He originally, I never knew this part of the story, and Shannon and I have been friends for a long, long time once he came into the network. And they were doing subscription-based websites at Alliance long before anyone else. And Rivals was still trying to do ad-driven, and that collapsed. That just didn't work. So he introduced subscription-based, and so Rivals goes into bankruptcy. Shannon just wants to buy out of his non-compete and go back to having Alliance Sports. He just wants to break Alliance Sports back off and go do his own thing. And eventually, he finds out nobody's made an offer on the assets of Rivals. Now, I knew he took the money that Rivals paid him and his investors and turned around and bought the entire network later. But I didn't realize he was paid $3 million and paid $500,000 for all of what became Rivals.com. It was incredible. Great businessman. He ended up selling Rivals to Yahoo for $100 million and then built 24/7 and sold it to CBS for more than $100 million, and then built a couple other non-sports websites and sold them to CBS Interactive. If you want to listen to that, go track down Clay Travis's podcast.
It's actually wins and losses.
Wins and losses?
Yeah. Clay Travis wins and losses.
Should be winners and losers. I'm sorry.
He's not going to have losers on his podcast.
Right.
I'm holding out hope I'm on. Why you just rule me out?
Are you considering yourself a loser?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah?
There you have it, folks.
Hey, go wins and losses. Apple Podcasts. Go find it. It's very interesting. You talk about low production value. They literally they don't take breaks. They just stick ads in the middle of the conversation.
And the ads are about 90 times louder than the podcast, so be ready.
Very strange. The first hour or so is kind of about the background and buying, and you go to the 1 hour mark.
But I kind of feel like you need it.
No, that's interesting. If you've got an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes to listen, go for it. But around the hour mark, Shannon starts talking about the different philosophy he adopted with 24/7 Sports than he had at Rivals.com. And it's fascinating, and I think it'll help you better grasp exactly the difference between what we are doing as GoPowercat.com at 24/7 and what we did at Rivals.com. There are different business models, and it's evolved a little bit. There was a small pivot there when they brought on the assets of Scout.com. And they pivoted back a little more in the direction of subscriptions. That's become much more important. But as he said, if there's 20% of fan bases that'll subscribe to a website like GoPowercat.com, there's 80% of fans who are just looking for information. And that's pretty fair assessment of what we do in terms of free and subscription content. If it's stuff you can find, out there, it doesn't take a lot of thought. D. Scott did a nice roundup of Phil Steele's selection of 9 K-State players on his All Big 12 team. That's free. But when you come to analysis, commentary, and a lot of those things, that goes behind the paywall. It's all part of the philosophy. Anyhow, I thought it was fascinating, but maybe it's nerd stuff because it's my industry, and I understand a lot of what's going on. But he's kind of the Yoda of this kind of business. Although Shannon totally whiffed on podcasts, he admitted that. I thought it was interesting. He said if I'd opened my eyes 4 years ago, I'd have another revenue stream with podcasts, but we're just now delving deep into it. And this is the Powercat Podcast. The segment's sponsored by Tanner's Bar and Grill down in Aggieville. Get down to Tanner's.
Thought it was sponsored by Clay Travis's Wins and Losses podcast.
Winners and losers.
I thought it was wins and losses, and then I said winners and losers, and you said, yeah, that's
I
it.
got confused.
And then I just went with it, and it's wins and losses. But you always win when you're at Tanner's. How's that?
Smooth.
I know.
That was smooth.
So the segment's brought to you by Tanner's. Podcast brought to you by The Fridge. And we are in the WTC Gig Powered Studios with your questions from Wabash Station. Zach Carlson.
From Matthew, KSU 20, what do you foresee the tempo being on offense for the football team this year? Closer to no huddle or more of Snyder's drain the clock?
Probably not. I don't think it's going to be snap the ball on 1, but I don't think it's going to be snap the ball on 33. I think it'll be closer to 1, so probably like around 10 seconds. They're not going to – this isn't an offense that's going to score 80 points. They didn't hire Art Briles, thank God. Shout out to that Texas high school. But, they're going to take their time. They're going to run the ball, and I certainly don't think they'll be in a hurry-up mode. I mean, it might come off as hurry-up, given what we've seen for the last 9 years, but I don't anticipate seeing them go, get up to the line and snap it real quick.
You have to understand the core philosophy of this Courtney Messingham offense, and the fact that they want to do a lot of motion, a lot of shifting. They want to kind of suss out what the defense is attempting to do, read the defense pre-snap. So that takes some time. There'll be a lot of back and forth movement, and I know a lot of you are probably going, what is going on here? This is just line up and snap it. But there is a purpose to that. They're trying to figure out what the defense is attempting to do and maybe even get guys out of position before the snap. I don't think they'll be running down to the final second of the clock. I don't think that'll happen. They can go tempo. They can go up tempo if they need to with the game clock running down, and they need to come back. So they'll do a little bit of everything, but this is definitely going to be a ball control offense. They want to run the ball more than Bill Snyder did. They want to come in here with a power running game more definitive and defined than Bill Snyder had. So I think it's going to be kind of slow down. I'm looking forward to it because that's my kind of football. I'm not a big fan of line up, snap it, and have a pre-designated route I'm going to throw to. I think that's lazy.
From Purple Powerhouse, since Kleiman likes the running back by committee approach, who do you see as the top 3 or 4 contributors in the running back rotation?
Well, let me point out, I don't think he necessarily likes it. He'll use it if he doesn't have a guy. Now, he's not going to have a guy next year, so the question stands.
Right. I still think Jordan Brown is going to be the guy.
Brown and Gilbert will be 2 of the guys.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you consider that 1 and 2 or 1A and 1B because they will split it. You know, I actually just wrote it today. My story is up looking at the running back situation. And I don't think you're going to have a 1,000-yard rusher, but I think you might have 2 450-yard rushers, something like that. And then you're probably going to have Harry Trotter.
Hello, Harry.
I don't think he's foreign.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Hello, Harry.
Tyler Burns or one of those freshmen coming in.
Yeah, I think it'll be a freshman. I think Harry Trotter will take some snaps, particularly in passing situations. I have a feeling he's going to be the kind of third down guy in some ways, but in other ways, I think they're also going to use him in a 2-back set as the fullback. He's a stout fella. He looks like you.
Oh,
he's built. Yeah.
The question becomes which of the freshmen do they go to, because they're all kind of different in a sense. You know, Clyde Price is stacked. They list him at 6'1", 220 on his recruiting page. I don't know. Maybe his weight's gone up. Maybe it's gone down. I saw him at the camp on Friday. I couldn't judge him as well as I could judge Jackson Ean. Holy crap.
He'll play.
Dude's a brick house. You got Joe Irvin. You've got Thomas Grayson. I mean, I think they all have different types of skill sets that they bring to the field. And I don't know which one they're going to look at. Are they going to look at a bruiser like Price, or do they want a shiftier guy, a guy with maybe a little bit more speed but maybe not as durable? I don't really know. And like we said, that's going to be your 3rd or 4th option anyways, so are you really going to be going to him all that much? That's where I get a little bit caught up at options 3 and 4.
A freshman will play and exhaust their eligibility. More than one will play and retain their eligibility with that freshman season by staying under 4 or staying under 5, technically 4 or fewer games.
Do you think anyone will lose it?
Yeah, I do. I think Jackson Ean's going to.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know. I thought you were just talking about running backs.
Price, if they're not happy with either one of the grad transfers or Harry Trotter, I think Clyde Price will be used all season long, and he might be anyhow.
Interesting.
From I Like Pickles Cat, our receivers have not had good hands the last few years. Does that get corrected this season?
I think. I think that Andre Coleman was not as dedicated to wide receivers this past season as maybe he had been in the past. Obviously, adding more to his plate with being the co-offensive coordinator had a lot to do with that.
He was the offense coordinator. He just had a co.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. And I think maybe the year before, because that's kind of when we started seeing noticeable drops, he might have been a little bit this was what I'm trying to get at is this wasn't a problem when we knew that he was 110% invested into I coach the receivers.
Right.
And he had a guy like Tyler Lockett helps.
It does help.
But I think maybe having Jason Ray be solely dedicated to receivers helps that out a little bit. But you could have the best wide receiver coach in the world coaching the wide receivers. You could have Tyler Lockett showing kids exactly how he caught the ball so many times, and that doesn't guarantee they're going to catch it. You can what's the saying? You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. It's like at the end of the day, the player's got to catch the ball. Yeah, you can coach them, but they have to do the actual physical act of catching it. So I would like to think that they don't have as many noticeable drops this year, but until they go out in the field and prove it, I can't really say one way or the other definitively.
From Wildcat Pilot 88, what does the quarterback room look like in the next few years? Who plays, who changes positions, and who transfers?
I'm going on the record right now saying that I don't think John Holcomb will finish his career as a quarterback. I don't know where. Well, okay, let me rephrase that. I'm going to go on the record saying I don't think that if he finishes his career at K-State, he will finish it as a quarterback.
This is a big year for him. He's clearly the backup this year. If history plays out, very few quarterbacks can make it through a season, no matter what the situation is or the system is. Bill Snyder's system as of late, there's no way you're making it through a season. But even in this system that'll be a little more cautious, you get hit. You get blindsided. Whether you're standing in a pocket or trying to run for a first down, you take some hits, and guys want to hit you. So Holcomb's going to get pressed into duty at times, and we're going to find out pretty quickly if he's a gamer. He's got some quarterback skills, certainly. He can chuck the ball, but that doesn't make you a quarterback. There's so much between the ear holes that goes into being a quarterback. And I'm not talking about intelligence, just kind of this sense of everything going on around you. Honestly, we don't know if Skylar Thompson fully has that. We saw him make some mistakes, have some turnovers, make some not always get into complex reads. So we'll find out. Maybe Holcomb will come in and just be really overwhelming. I still think if he wants to make a buck in the NFL, he should switch to tight end. I really do. And for me, it depends on what the kid wants. The kid just wants to play this spot. I'm a quarterback. I want to do it, even if I'm not the starter, even if I'm not going to play at the next level. This is what I want to do, and I'll get my college degree and go about my business. If you want to play in the NFL, you might want to look at tight end because you're big, you're athletic, you understand what quarterbacks do, which helps you run routes and things. So I don't know. For now, he's a quarterback, and Chris Kleiman insists he's a quarterback, but I'm with you, Riley. I will be surprised if he's a 5-year quarterback at Kansas State and starts at some point. I think these young guys they're bringing in will overtake him.
Well, let's just it's impossible to predict, though. Raise your hand if you thought Justin Tuggle was going to be the next great quarterback at Kansas State. I'm raising it really damn high right now, by the way.
It's not that high.
Because he... Screw you. He was the number one quarterback in the class. He was supposed to be a star here at quarterback, and he was a really good linebacker.
Yeah, he was.
But he wasn't a quarterback, so it's impossible to predict. You don't go pick Jaron Lewis out of the North Dakota State signing class on the day of signing day if you don't have some intentions of playing him one day or you don't see a potential to play him. You don't make it a point to go land a quarterback in every single class like they have now, adding Will Howard in the 2020 class if you don't think he might play. Oh, yeah, and then, by the way, Chris Herron's right there with one of the highest 24/7 Sports composite ratings in K-State recruiting history. So it's a jumble. It's weird because they're not deep. They don't have experience. I'm nervous as hell if Skylar gets hurt. Mm-hmm. But it's a jumbled quarterback room right now.
Agreed.
From K-Ned, what is the impression of Kleiman by the former players? Is the vibe things are different, or do they still feel it is their program?
That's a great question. I just had an interaction with a friend of mine who's a former player from back in the foundation times. There's a lot of former players that are really worried. To them, from the outside, this is probably guys that aren't right here. I know this guy isn't right here in Kansas and, a little more hands-on than the Nick Leckies and, the guys that are around. There's a real concern that the Snyder Magic was the Snyder Magic, and that will never be replicated. I don't believe that. I believe that was true early on, but I think now what Coach built and moved on, maybe he stayed a little bit too long to properly pass it on, which we predicted from the very start here. Once he got past year 5, I'm like, he's going to go until he can't go anymore or it starts to fall apart, which is kind of what happened. But there's a real concern that but that's just one segment, that this is just going to be another Ron Prince. It's going to sound good. There's going to be some success, but there won't be satisfaction. Now, what undid Ron Prince was some football and a lot of off-the-field stuff, and Kleiman is home running the off-the-field stuff. But, man, I remember going out on the Catbacker Tour. Where'd that come from? I remember going out on the Catbacker Tour when Ron Prince was hired that first summer, and, man, people loved him. They were fired up. They loved him. He sounded good, said the right things. My favorite story is when his dad questioned whether or not he was ready to be the head coach at Kansas State. He said, "Don't worry, Dad. I've got this." Well, he didn't. Sorry, Dad. Kleiman's got a lot of confidence. He should, but he's had success to earn that confidence, to build that confidence. So we'll see. And I know there's a whole other group of guys like Joe Hall, who's now in the football program, who thought it was time. They could see that there was some deterioration in the program, and they were ready for something new, and that happened. Now Joe's, director of player development or whatever his title is, and I think he'll be incredible at that job.
From Seafied, I've seen this name. I don't think I've ever tried pronouncing it.
I don't know. We've done a lot of podcasts.
Are you for or against a cupcake non-con in the middle of the season opposed to all 3 starting the season?
I hate that. I think that's awful. I know it'd be nice to rest up, but I think it takes away your focus and your edge if you did that SEC crap.
I get it is crap. It's not even the middle of the season. It's November.
Yeah.
Right when everything's getting important. Now we're going to play someone you've never heard of and brag about how badass we are. Hey, the thing about the SEC is they have 4 non-conference games. So they still got their 3 on the front end, and then they play this 4th one in the middle.
Yeah, that's true.
That is the biggest crap. Play 9 games, man. You got 14 members in your conference. You don't play some teams for up to 20 years or something. Go play a 9th game. Man up. Quit talking about how great you are, and you are. But you're playing one less game of substance than everyone else, where your backups truly can win the game. I don't like it. Maybe I'm too trained in the Bill Snyder stair-step approach, but I like that, and that's what's going on in this schedule. You've got the FCS, you've got the non-Power 5, and then you got the Power 5 leading into the Big 12, and I like it. I think it's a good way to prepare your team, particularly in a situation where it's a new coach and it's new systems.
It gives you that opportunity to, pound it, and for 2 games. If you win the 3rd one, things are good. You're rolling into the conference play with some momentum, and you clearly have some good, or your team's in a good spot. If you lose it, tough loss. Was a Power 5, though. We know what we got to do to play at this level. We get a week off or whatever to fix it, or we go into Big 12 play to fix it. I guess I wouldn't be totally opposed if they ended up one day like throwing it later in the schedule, giving them a week off, but I kind of like it right now.
What if, now hear me out, during the SEC's week of cupcakes, instead of playing cupcakes, they do this thing called the Big 12 SEC Challenge. And then line up a bunch of Big 12 teams together.
I will kill you.
In the middle of the season, middle of conference play. What do you think?
In all seriousness, the Big Ten and SEC should look at that and designate the home teams at the start of the season and not designate who's going where until a couple weeks out.
Oh, my God. That was good.
Like these 7 teams are hosting from each conference, so the other 7 teams are going on the road, and we will pair them based on whatever.
Hand them an envelope, and it's like, we don't even know where you're going.
And K-State's rolling, and they're in position to win the Big 12, and then they go to Texas A&M and get. Oh wait, sorry, that was the wrong sport. That would be. What team would that be in the SEC in football this year? Would that be?
Vanderbilt.
Yikes! Bad memories. But yeah, it'd be Vanderbilt. So we'll just leave it at that.
Mizzou.
Yeah. New quarterback, yeah. Missouri is Texas A&M in basketball.
Also from C-Fied, I don't know. Well, yeah, it's just me, C-Fied, I don't know. Last question of the first half. With all the recruiting action, I'm dying to see football in a couple of months. Is 8 regular season wins out of the question, or am I too hyped from the recruiting success?
Well, I hate to break the news to you. The 2020 kids aren't on this team.
Yeah, they can recruit really well, but they're not going to have any impact next year.
I don't think it's out of the question.
That's my ceiling.
Yeah, that's why
Regular
I'm at.
season, that's my ceiling.
Would I be entirely shocked if they won 8 games? I wouldn't be like floored, holy crap, never saw this coming, but I'm not anticipating it. That's where I'm at. Like I've always said, 6 to 7 wins is where I'm placing the bar. 8 would be real nice, and I think 8 is possible, but I don't think it is expected.
Yeah. No, I think it's possible. I think it'll be below that, but it could be up to that. Watch him win 12 games.
I'm telling you, he's going to win the national championship.
Let me,
That's all he does.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what losing is.
What if he just walked into a press conference and said that? Like, he just slaughters Oklahoma, and he's like, guys, I don't know how to lose. And I'll be like, oh my God. That would be the biggest. At Channel, this would play well. That would be incredible. Please, Chris Kleiman, since you're listening to this podcast.
Every day. He listens to it on repeat.
I like to think they listen to it at practice.
He's got Stitcher.
Plays it over the loudspeakers.
Yeah, they got Stitcher running right there on their on the big screen. Oh, let's touch this. This might be in the overtime. Family movie night?
It's not in the overtime. I think it's whatever. It's a cool thing, I guess. But
First of all,
I wouldn't have picked the movies that they're voting for, but
well, it's family.
it's family.
I'd still pick different movies.
I think it's they're gonna have to use the stadium speakers and
Well, match up.
yeah, it's. It doesn't. It seems like a good idea on the surface. Doesn't seem like an idea that is gonna execute because of the sound, unless they wheel in speakers.
I don't know how they're going to. Can you take blankets down to the field?
Oh, I'm sure you can put lawn
It's
chairs
gonna be
out there
summer. Why do you want a blanket?
to sit on.
You don't want the black stuff sticking to your butt.
I'll say this.
I'm just used to it.
I'm
guess.
not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying I will not be attending. Well, if you have I don't have a family.
If it's How to Train
As far as you
Your
know.
Dragon 2, I will not be there.
However, if it is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, we'll consider it.
Incredibles 2, likely.
Okay, I didn't see that one in theaters, so I might have to go if it's Incredibles 2.
That'd be my vote.
May I suggest getting Toy Story 4 early?
Yeah, come on, pony up.
How are they handling the licensing for this?
They are licensing it. They have to.
Yeah, that's just pretty strange. I remember when a bar in Agville would have movie night. It's like, there's that FBI warning on that. You might want to read that. You can't just have movie night at a commercial enterprise. And maybe that's it because it's...
Unless they just looked at FX guide and were like, all right, FX tonight. It's Armageddon.
Fair.
That's kind of funny. Just flip on the commercials and all.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the first half of the Powercat podcast. On the other side, we will have Ryan Wallace to take your questions from Wabash Station about Kansas State football recruiting. And honestly, I'm glad he's on because I am numb, confused, and overwhelmed. And none of that has to do with recruiting.
The gang will return with more of the Powercat podcast.
Picture this nightmare scenario. You're hosting friends for the big game. It's neck and neck in the fourth quarter, and suddenly you realize you're out of drinks. You start to sweat. Your friends start to turn on you. You're forced to go on a last-second drink run and end up missing the game-winning touchdown while in line. Terrifying, isn't it? Luckily, you can avoid the drama with Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. With Drizzly, you can shop a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your watch party. Compare prices across multiple stores in your area, find the best deals on game day drinks, and get back to armchair quarterbacking from, you guessed it, your armchair. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
Back to Fitz of the Powercat podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
Welcome back to the Powercat podcast, and of course, we mentioned this in segment 1. We have Ryan Wallace, our recruiting editor, in with us here. A little bit going on in recruiting, Wally. Just a few things have happened this summer. Your typical summer, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, so very much the opposite. We talked about this, I think, privately in text messages over the course of the last couple of weeks, but it's one of those things where, I'm fine when there's a flurry, going back to the Snyder era, I'm fine with that late flurry in January of commitments that come in because your mindset is already, it's so close to signing day that your mindset is already prepared for that sort of thing. I'm not used to having my summer kind of, just flipped on its head with recruit after recruit after recruit committing. But obviously for the future of K-State football, we welcome it.
Yeah, it's not like we're complaining about great recruiting. It's just this is one of those things where a change of style is catching us old dogs off guard a little bit. It's been pretty amazing. This segment is brought to you by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor and our friends at the High Low. The High Low gets all their liquor from the fridge. I think you probably should do the same. Visit the High Low down in Aggieville and the Fridge at the corner of this and that.
Well, close enough.
Yeah, I'll never get the streets completely right, so I'll just say that. But get into the Fridge. They're great people. We're here at the WTC Gig Pirate Studios, and this is the Powercat podcast, and we're going to just launch right into questions from Wabash Station for our recruiting analyst and whiz, Ryan Wallace, and here's Riley Gates.
Let's get it going. Herdez Joe asks, Will Howard commits close to losing Purdy? Is it Howard waiting or us having him wait?
I just don't buy into the fact that Kansas State maybe knew that Howard was thinking about committing and told him to hold off until they found out what Chubba Purdy was going to do. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It doesn't sound like something that Chris Kleiman would do, or many coaches, to be quite frank. But I think it was more just coincidental, and it really couldn't have come at a better time for Kansas State. You lose out on Chubba Purdy. You were definitely in the top 3. I would say probably the runner-up to Louisville. And then to have Will Howard come in and give his pledge was tremendous because, really, I know Will Howard is not the most highly ranked guy, especially when you pair him against Purdy and even against C.J. Stroud and Hunter Deckers, who are Elite 11 quarterbacks. But he has a lot of the tools that you would see from a Courtney Messingham quarterback that fit this offense, arguably maybe even a little bit better than some of the shotgun guys. So to get back to the question, I'm under the belief it was more coincidental than Kansas State saying, yeah, can you just wait 1 second and let's figure out where Chubba Purdy's going to go first?
Yeah, that never works. I mean, you never get to put someone off by saying, hey, I'm going to go ask someone else first, but if they're not available, then I want you. I mean, it's just
exactly.
It doesn't work in life, and it certainly doesn't work in recruiting. That's a good way to make sure a kid knows that he's not valued and he needs to go somewhere else.
Mountain Joe asks, while Will Howard is listed as a pro style, would you assume he has escapability, which allows him to operate very well in a Kleiman-designed offense, pass first, but can move and be elusive when needed?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. He's not the most athletically gifted guy in the world, but he's also, not a bag of rocks back there. I mean, he can move. I think in our commitment article, I kind of equated his style to maybe what we saw back in the day with Brian Cavanaugh. A guy that was capable of standing in the pocket and withstanding some bigger hits, but at the same time was very capable of scurrying for, 5 or 10 yards, little chunk plays here when you need it. In a way, his body's very different, but, Josh Freeman could do that. Jesse Ertz is another guy, I think, that could do that. And I don't even know if Will Howard even has his type of athletic ability. But, I definitely think he's not Jake Waters. He's certainly not, a Daniel Sams type of guy or Michael Bishop, L. Roberson. But he can definitely pick up some yards when you need it. And I think that's exactly kind of what you saw from North Dakota State most recently with Easton Stick. Everybody thinks of Carson Wentz, who is kind of the uber elite athlete that North Dakota State had at quarterback. But I think Will Howard and Easton Stick are very, very similar in the fact that, pocket passers, but if you need something, they can do it with their legs too.
That's an interesting point. I keep trying to get a comparison with the K-State quarterback, but in watching Easton Stick down the stretch, he wasn't a great runner, but he was a smart runner. He was a definitive runner. And that one highlight you put up of Will Howard running the ball, he waits for blocks to develop, and then he goes. And that did remind me a lot of Easton Stick. I think that's a great comparison and fairly similar. I mean, this is a big kid, so when he carries the ball, he's going to have a little weight behind him.
Yeah, I would call it not a dynamic runner, but an effective runner.
Yeah, perfect.
I Like Pickles Cat wants to know, how many more recruits do we need for this class?
I do think that they're going to get over that kind of 25 mark. How far over is the real question, and that'll be up to getting deeper into the cycle of who they feel like is worth taking at certain points of time. Particularly, like I said, when you get closer into December and January after that initial signing period, to see what kind of needs they have and who's left on the board. But I do think it will be one of the larger classes we've seen in quite some time, and we kind of knew that going in. But my hunch says somewhere in the neighborhood, I think 27 seems like a very capable number. I don't know if they would go higher than that, but I definitely think it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 27 guys.
Yeah, they'll go over. There's no doubt. I mean, you got to compensate for some guys you might lose at the end of recruiting that break their pledge and go somewhere else. And plus, if some guys come in early, be it JUCO or high school, you can count them back if there's any room in the 2019 class. So there's a couple of options there for them, but they've got to fill the void on this roster, don't they? They've got a lot of holes, a lot of depth they need to really build back up that kind of dwindled over the past few years.
Definitely. The offensive tackle, I know for a fact, is something that's keeping these coaches up at night. They feel like they should have had one by now, and I'm not saying any one in particular. They just felt like there would have been one tackle by this point through all their evaluations and offers that they might have struck gold on, and it just hasn't happened. So that's certainly going to be an area that they're going to hit very, very hard coming out of summer and even here in the middle of part of summer with further evaluations. Running back, wide receiver is an absolute must. I know they have one with Jalen Travis that they just got, but they need more, clearly. And then, obviously, you can never kind of have enough on the defensive line. They're going to try and shore up some depth issues there as well.
CF-I'd, I think is how we said it in the first half. Also, how many of the football 2020 commits stay to sign in December, and how many do we lose?
This class seems like the type of group so far anyway that has kind of done their due diligence in the recruiting process, even though it's early, and has kind of found their fit with K-State. In the past, you have kids that maybe decide in the summer without having done a lot of the things that these guys have, meaning official visits or even unofficial visits. a lot of the kids that Kansas State has plugged in this 2020 class have either come on official visits or unofficial visits. They've been to camp. They've seen the coaches now. They're meeting these coaches, whereas in the past with summer commitments, they might not have ever met, Bill Snyder's staff other than maybe a phone call or a message here or there. So I think the relationships are a little bit stronger than maybe what we presume from years past. And, obviously, the one caveat to all that is with official visits. Some of these guys, the JoJo Wilsons, the Jeremiah Harrises, have already made their official visits. So from a negative standpoint, you don't have that in your back pocket anymore if you're K-State. When other schools start to swoop in, have them come potentially could have them come on official visits in the fall. K-State can't say, well, why don't you come take an official visit back here and we'll remind you of why you chose us in the first place. They don't have that anymore. But to counter that, there's a guy like Chris Herron, who last year in the 2019 class made a commitment early in the summer, clearly had a very strong senior season where schools did and could have come in on him late to try and persuade him elsewhere, and he still wound up signing with Kansas State, even amidst a coaching change. So, yeah, like Fitz said, I think you prepare for maybe one or two, particularly the guys that are further away from home. So, Will Howard, they're going to have to keep a closer eye on. Christian Moore, potentially, although his recruitment's not quite as blossoming as some of these other guys, being in California, Max Son down in Louisiana. They're going to have to keep closer eyes on them. But overall, I think that a lot of these guys are pretty locked in with Kansas State.
You mentioned Will Howard in that group, and it strikes me that I think it's more likely Will Howard signs with Kansas State than Chubba Purdy signs with Louisville. I think he's still quietly on the market. If someone big comes roaring in, he's going to listen. Not saying Will Howard won't listen if, a Penn State, someone more in the neighborhood comes in on him.
Sure.
But I just have a feeling Purdy's going to be in play again. And I don't know if I'm right or not, but what are your instincts on that?
It's interesting you bring that up because there's definitely been kind of a quiet word on the street about Chubba Purdy with Louisville. I think he really likes Louisville. I think he handled his recruitment great by taking that nice tour and seeing a lot of colleges and then immediately going back to the drawing board with his parents and making a decision. But at the same time, I think even though he's already a four-star, like you said, Fitz, I think there are a number of major programs that still maybe haven't given him the time of day. And if they do, look out, Louisville.
Mountain Joe asks, while people get concerned with recruiting class rankings, it is my opinion that anything higher than 60 and definitely higher than 50 overall is a huge jump in comparison to Snyder in the last 5 years. Would you agree?
2 words, hell yes. Like it's not even close. I mean, where they're at right now, just knocking on the door of the top 25, even top 30 is really amazing. I think a lot of us kind of assumed that Chris Kleiman had the potential to put a staff together that could really recruit. Then we saw the staff that he put together and we thought, well, these guys definitely can recruit, but they're still probably going to need a body of work to go out and pitch. They're still probably going to need a year or two under their belt to prove that they can do it and win a couple games and then show people, okay, now we have kind of our full plate to offer you. The fact that they're doing this on a very limited body of work, pretty much their personal histories and an FCS body of work, again, a very, very, very successful body of work in the FCS, but an FCS body of work is pretty remarkable. Bill Snyder's staff, even some of the best classes that we saw, the class with Dalvin Warmack, Dalton Reisner, and Elijah Lee was still back in the upper 40s, low 50s. The fact that they're knocking on the door of where they're at right now, and it's still July, end of June, early July, and we presume that they're still going to go after some heavier hitters down the stretch at positions of need. Look out. It's truly remarkable. I just don't have another word to really describe it because no one saw this coming. Not only the amount of commits, but the fact that the national evaluators, even on some of the kids we feel are reaches, that the national evaluators kind of see the potential there and have given this class the rating that it has right now.
We've long said, and Bill Snyder said this, if a lot of coaches have, if you get a kid to Manhattan, you get them on campus at Kansas State, and in football, you get them to the facilities, you've got a really good chance. And they've leveraged these camps extremely well, honestly much better than the previous staff ever did, to get kids in, let them see what it's about, meet the coaches, get a feel for the community, and it's really paid off, hasn't it?
It's interesting that you bring that up, too, because I was just thinking about visits and how in one of the initial articles that I wrote post-Kleiman's hiring, it was, the biggest thing that this staff can do besides just have more energy and give more effort to just recruiting in general, it's kind of that, ABV, that always be visiting or always have visitors. And they don't care if it's a Tuesday afternoon or a Wednesday afternoon. You're seeing kids coming in on weekdays, weeknights that are taking visits. They really utilize the spring session good with having kids come in and watch practice. They've really done a remarkable job. I was just talking to Ross, our pal up in North Dakota State the other day, and he mentioned again just how much of an emphasis Coach Kleiman and some of those North Dakota State guys he brought with him have put on camps, how hard they evaluate guys and get quality players to come camp that they can look at and get, a real legitimate feel for. And you've seen it with a number of commits that have come out of camp. They take that very seriously. They get guys on campus. And like you said, Fitz, we're seeing them reap the benefits of that. It's amazing how simple that concept is. Get guys to campus with these wonderful facilities. It's amazing what can happen, right?
Exactly. And how important is it to them? Well, last Saturday was K-State Day at the K. Chris Kleiman threw out the first pitch, left the stadium, got in his car, and drove back. Didn't watch the game at all because he had recruits on campus, and being here in Manhattan was much more important than spending the day at the K and enjoying a baseball game. Never miss an opportunity to get in front of recruits.
Wizard 6294, why has this coaching staff struggled so much with offensive line recruiting?
It's interesting. This is kind of a tricky one because I feel like my gut says that if this were any other year, it wouldn't be as glaring. It wouldn't be this point of emphasis that fans continue to kind of circle in red marker. And I say that because what other year do you have Turner Corcoran, Hayden Pauls, Alex Kahn, Sam Shields, Hadley Tanzer, which some of those guys that I've mentioned have committed to K-State already. But, Cody Fayette, the list goes on and on with offensive linemen in this class. And I think because you saw Kansas State miss on the big ones, immediately it's, there's a problem with offensive tackles. And in saying that, I'm not trying to put a smoke screen over it because, with the amount of kids that they've offered there, between offensive tackle and wide receiver, those have kind of been two disappointments in the sense that they should have more. They really should. They should have had one by now. But I do question, to a certain extent, is it really this huge miss so far that a lot of fans are making it out to be? Because, you could also easily argue that had Charlie Dickey stayed on board, does Turner Corcoran really even give Kansas State the time of day that he did with Coach Kleiman's staff? Does that happen? Are they involved with some of the tackles that, even though they might have missed on, that they were involved in with Connor Riley? Does that happen with Bill Snyder's staff? I don't know. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but I really am starting to wonder, is it bad or is it really bad because of the class of in-state guys that we had this year?
Well, and I think you can't say enough about the fact that guys like Turner, they've been able to have the same coaching staff in Nebraska for a couple of years that they've had these relationships built up, whereas K-State, it's obviously the coaching change. And no matter how good of an offensive line coach we think Connor Riley is, I think we all think he's a great one, and no matter how good of a head coach we think Chris Kleiman can be for a recruit, you can't do anything to make up for lost time in building relationships. And I'm sorry to give this tough pill to swallow, K-State fans. It's questionable right now. I don't necessarily blame a kid if they say, I might like K-State, but I just don't know. I'm just a little uneasy right now, and they would have every right in my mind to do that, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but I've seen it out there where, Nebraska is kind of pitching people on past history. Scott Frost doesn't have anything to show. Well, he does have all the things to show at UCF. And that is, an FBS team that obviously, in an 18-year-old's mind, it's kind of what have you done for me lately? And UCF has been in the spotlight, well, whether you think they're good or not, for a handful of years because of Scott Frost. So he does have that to pitch. Matt Campbell, again, Iowa State. It's Iowa State. How can a kid want to go to Iowa State? Well, Matt Campbell's staff is very energized. And again, what have you done for me lately? Iowa State's been kind of turning the corner. They've been pretty darn good. So I don't think it's a bad thing, I guess, when you're losing to Nebraska and Iowa State, at least, like you said, Riley, at this current stage.
BK Big Fish 81. What is the latest on Matthew Roberts? How did his move to Texas go, and is there still mutual interest there?
I think there's mutual interest, but I think the fear that many of us had when that move was announced might be slowly starting to take shape, might be kind of coming to fruition because, we've already seen both the brothers get offers from Texas A&M, and, they haven't really been in Texas very long. They went down to camp. We've seen brother Jaden has already started to go to make visits to LSU. We're talking Alabama offers, Florida State offers. Everybody under the sun, Georgia is starting to offer Jaden. And people are starting to figure out, too, that this is going to be a package deal, and Texas A&M caught on real quick. Matthew Roberts is not a two-star guy. He's not this kid that have kind of scratching your head like, why are we taking this kid? Even if his brother's really good, why are we taking this kid? I think Matthew Roberts is a real sleeper. And I think from a Kansas State perspective, and I hate to say this because Matthew's a great kid, and like I said, I think he's a pretty good athlete. I think he'll show out on a team like North Shore. But from Kansas State's perspective, and I said this before, you almost hope that Matthew Roberts struggles a little bit on the Texas scene in this senior season for a program like North Shore. The other thing that you're crossing your fingers for from a Kansas State perspective is that a guy like JoJo Wilson, who attends North Shore as well and is a K-State commit, gets in Matthew's ear, and that maybe some of his former St. Thomas Aquinas kids and Kansas City kids that he's grown up around, a guy like Adam Davis that's on the Kansas State roster already, Will Swanson, who's a member, I believe, kind of a manager on the team, as well as other just students that go to K-State that have a longer-standing relationship with Matthew and Jaden, maybe draw them back home. And they say, Kansas State was the first offer on the board for you, Matthew. Why don't you come on home? But the way that things are really starting to trend there, with Utah State offering, like I said, Texas A&M, Missouri's kind of knocking on the door there. It does make you wonder, are things starting to drift away from Kansas State? It's hard not to argue with that.
Purple Powerhouse with the question that we all want to know the answer to, obviously. Is Malik Berry stringing us along, or is he holding out for a better offer?
Oh, the Malik Berry saga. I mean, where do we begin with good old Malik? And Malik's a great kid. He's been nothing but respectful in answering us every time we've called upon him. But it's a recruitment that's become a head-scratcher at this point. And to give you a little bit of a background, I've talked to folks close to Malik, that know him well, and as well as even some commits. There have been some Kansas State commits that have straight up told me, Malik Berry told me that he was going to commit around Easter, that it was going to happen Easter weekend. And Easter weekend came, and I'm fully prepared for the commitment signals to fly out, and it never happens. And no one really has a good explanation why, other than he's taking his time. He just wants to be sure. To me, I think Malik Berry is kind of caught up in the process right now. I think he's very happy with Kansas State. I don't think it's a matter of he doesn't really respect Kansas State. He thinks he's better than K-State. But I do think he feels like he deserves, and he's a player that's capable of earning more Power 5 offers down the stretch. I think the fact that KU didn't offer irritated him. I think the fact that Nebraska still hasn't offered irritates him. Again, I'm not trying to put things in Malik's mouth. I haven't heard him say this. This is my personal opinion, knowing kind of what's going on under the surface with this recruitment, having talked to folks. And so I think he's comfortable waiting. The problem with that is I think Kansas State's nearing a point right now where it's kind of like it's time to make a move. We've shown you how interested we are. We were on you first. But at your position at linebacker, as you can see, Malik, we're starting to take some guys. And, we think you're a good athlete. We're capable of holding this spot for a little bit. But I don't know if they're going to hold it much longer. I'm really not sure if he's the type of player that warrants them holding this deep into the fall and into the winter. So right now, I just have a hunch that Malik it's going to come down to someone telling him and getting in his ear saying, you know what, Malik, this is your best offer on the table. And there are people that I've talked to that don't think Nebraska is going to offer. And that if KU hadn't offered by now, they're not going to. And that Malik needs to go ahead and strike when the iron's hot. The question is, does Malik see the writing on the wall? And I don't know if he does.
Yeah, I think it has to be something along those lines. Like, I don't want to belittle a different school. I don't want to say that a kid's, if he's interested in a smaller school, that he doesn't have the right to be. But when I talked to him at camp last week, and, he says his top three are K-State, Liberty, and Northern Iowa, it's like, it's just such an odd collection of teams to be deciding between right now. So there's got to be something behind that, you think?
Well, and the other thing, and I hate to speculate on academics, because without someone sending me a transcript, without me going to Lawrence Free State, knocking on, a student advisor's door and asking to see Malik Berry's grades, I can't say wholeheartedly, but I have talked to someone close at Lawrence Free State that would have some knowledge about his academic standing, and I do know that things started to slip. I mean, to be blunt, things started to slip in the spring. Social life started to get to Malik, as it does with many kids that are entering their senior year. Recruiting, as far as, being absent with camps, clinics, combines, all that kind of stuff, taking visits. It did start to catch up with Malik. Is he in severe, is he in a severe area where that's why, people are starting to say, we need to see your grades get up? Or is it just kind of a minor thing that teams are just keeping an eye on? I don't know. I don't know the severity, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe that's not starting to rear its ugly head in all of this too.
Wizard6294, who so far from this class is your favorite recruit and why?
For me, just going on film, going on need, I love JoJo Wilson. Van Malone striking there down in Houston with a kid, like I said earlier, talking about Matthew Roberts. North Shore is a powerhouse program. Defending state champs, he's not a guy, for whatever reason, that is, top 100 in the state. Not, one of these guys that's mentioned nationally as, one of the best cornerbacks, but he's got great length. And I tell you what, guys, everybody that I talk to that have seen him play around Houston say that he is the real deal. He's quick enough. He's long. He's got that attitude, kind of that Duke Shelley dog in him that's going to play with emotion. I absolutely love him. There's some other guys in this class that have a lot of potential, but if you're looking for a guy that can come in right away and really fit a team need that's going to gel fantastically with the personality of Van Malone, you can't find a better fit than JoJo Wilson right now.
For me, I think Deuce Vaughn seems like the one that would create the most excitement, because I saw him in person. You read his player card on 24/7 Sports. He's 5'6". What Power 5 program is taking a 5'6" kid if they don't know this kid's going to be able to contribute in some way? He's going to get compared to Darren Sproles from day one. I mean, let's just accept that. That's going to be the comparison people want to make. I think setting the bar at Darren's level is obviously way too high from day one for Deuce, but there's got to be something there if they're going to take him in the class, in my opinion.
Well, and no offense to a guy like Keon Mosey, and it might be the fact that Keon plays in Kansas City, whereas Deuce plays in a hotbed for recruiting like Texas, where he's seen more. But I think it speaks volumes at the fact that despite the fact that they're the same size, you look at a guy like Deuce Vaughn, and like you said, Riley, there must be a special element there for teams like Arkansas, Missouri, Baylor, to say, you know what, this kid's got something that we're going to go ahead and put some serious interest in him. That, to me, is the difference where, height-wise, you say Deuce Vaughn's a little bit of a reach, might be a little bit of a project, but there's something about him that is elite.
Wrapping up the second half here, Powercat Ryan asks, does having a coaching staff that invites media members covering recruiting help get commitments? It seems like that may prove to recruits that Kansas State is a big-time program with several outlets trying to get interviews, and just an overall showering of attention could not hurt.
Let me put it this way. As far as our presence being at, for instance, let's use these camps that Coach Kleiman and them have recently had, these one-day prospect camps that I think is kind of where the question is going. The fact that we've been able to be there, get photos, talk to kids immediately after, do I think that is a good thing as far as like leading to kids committing? No, because even if this was back in the Bill Snyder era and the gates were locked to us, to the media getting in, we were still going to call these kids once we figured out who was offered and who stood out. I mean, we were always finding out who the guys at camp that showed out were most, and we were always still seeking them out for interviews and things of that nature. So that hasn't changed. And I don't know if our presence being there with a small camera, if kids are kind of looking over their shoulder thinking, wow, I've hit the big time. I don't know if I agree with that. However, do I think that recruits are catching on to the fact that they're seeing that buzz generated on social media? Certainly. Yeah, I think that's where the help comes, is on social media, when you're starting to see kids talking about camp more, when you're starting to see coaches talk about camp more. That's, I think, where we're seeing the difference. But as far as, our presence being there and the fact that, we're doing articles on kids, we've always done that.
We have always done that. What's interesting, though, is when you and Riley and Fritchen go to these things, you can sit there and watch who the coaches are really zeroing in on. They pull them aside, they take them into the tunnel. It just adds another layer of intrigue for our coverage. It's kind of fun to see the direct indication, this is a guy we're going to spend some extra time with.
Yeah, and I think it's given us better intel. We're not, I don't want to say in the past we've ever wasted time, because I feel like at Go Powercat we've always tried to do a really good job of finding out and covering the prospects that need to be covered. But definitely with the camps, you see it with your own eyes, who they're talking to. Therefore, that's a guy that we need to talk to. That's a guy that the fans need to know about. And certainly, yeah, being present at these things and having the coaches allow us to be there has been welcome, and I think it's been a positive for our subscribers too.
I agree. It's Ryan Wallace, our recruiting analyst here at GoPowercat.com. He covers football recruiting like no one else, has done it for a long time. I appreciate you being on with us, Wally, and I know you're headed to the lake, and I'm sorry that you have to go to the Ozarks this weekend and enjoy an entire weekend of fun with your buddies and possibly having a cold beer.
It's really terrible, right?
I know.
I mean, I'm about to run some errands. I'm going to go inside, get some needed essentials, the coconut water, the Pedialyte, things like that.
Good prep.
Could you guys just do me a favor and maybe talk to Taylor Brad about hitting the pause button on that whole Bring on the Cats thing? That would be lovely, because I got things to do with my buddy Jason Bateman down there.
I'm guaranteeing that now that you are on your deserved vacation, there will be one or two commitments this weekend. That just seems to be how it goes for our staff. Happened with basketball while I was flying, so it's bound to happen with you while you are enjoying some time off.
But don't worry about it. We got it. Riley Gates will be all over it. Go have a good weekend, and I appreciate you joining us on the Powercat podcast.
Appreciate it, boys. I'll have a cold one for you when I'm on a pontoon.
Oh, boy. That's Ryan Wallace, and this is the Powercat podcast. The overtime awaits on the other side of this break. We're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, and we'll be right back.
The gang will return with more of the Powercat podcast.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
My days working, taking care of my little ones can be a lot. I checked out care.com and it was so easy for me to find local, experienced, and background check sitters. Finding our babysitter was way more affordable than I thought.
Care.com makes it super easy. Search for qualified candidates. You can view their profiles, read reviews and ratings, check their availability, send messages directly, and get the help that you need. Care.com should be every person's go-to.
Back to Fitz of the Powercat podcast, sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor.
The Powercat podcast enters the overtime. If you're not familiar with the overtime, where you been? Where you been? It's all the other stuff. Maybe there's some serious questions and there's a whole bunch of not so serious questions, but we've given you a lot of serious stuff. The first half was sponsored by Tanner's and it covered K-State sports in general. And the second half sponsored by the High-Low was a discussion and your questions from All By Station with recruiting analyst Ryan Wallace. His football recruiting has gone wacko.
It's always nice when he comes on the podcast because we get to sit here and seem like we are as knowledgeable and as smart as he is.
You got to add in once in a while go, yeah, okay.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
We knew some things. I feel like we're pretty educated. Wally's even more educated than us.
The thing about Go Powercat is we all have our lane. You're basketball, Fritz is football, and football recruiting is its own lane because it's so, I don't know, just
it is a thing.
Overwhelming at times.
It is more important than the football team at times. I would almost argue that.
So it's hard for the football beat writer to do football recruiting. So almost every site has an individual football recruiting person. And then you take basketball and basketball recruiting because it's only a few players a year.
Basically, July is the worst time of year to be basketball recruiting, and July is the month that I chose to take vacation this year. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll be calling kids from Hawaii.
We'll figure it out. I'm telling you, actually, we're thinking about buying that Wi-Fi in the plane. I need to figure out, can you find the price of Wi-Fi for one flight before you board the flight?
Yeah.
Because we were struggling. We're on United.
Okay.
And we called, and they were like, yeah, we don't really know.
So right there's 50% chance you're not getting to Hawaii.
Wi-Fi price
It was like,
on Google.
They were like, well, we don't really know what the individual price is.
Generally, you can expect to pay between $7 and $14 for a 1 hour pass and between $19 and $29 for a full day pass.
Okay, and we didn't know, would it change because we're on one of those bigger planes, it's like 6 across or whatever, or something like that.
Whoa, a bigger plane.
Like it's
6 across.
No, like
a standard 737.
No, screw you. It's not like that. Like 6 together. Like it's a bigger plane.
6 in the middle.
Thank you. Yes, it's like 40 or 50 for an entire year or something like that. It's like, okay, well that might be better well spent, but I know we're never going to fly United to a basketball or football game because shout out to the Texas Bowl. So anyways, where was I even going with
every time
you
learn something about airline policies, it costs you money. A lot of money.
Anyways, where I was going with that was I'm going to have Wi-Fi on this flight because it's Denver to Oahu.
That's a long haul, brother.
Yeah, I know. I was under the impression we were going Kansas City to California and then California to Hawaii. I'm like, all right, that's not.
It breaks it up.
Yeah,
which is what we did.
It's half and half. And then my grandpa was like, oh yeah, just Denver to Hawaii, and I'm like, that's not close.
No, that's
a 7-hour flight, folks.
Yeah, that's because it's.
I will be watching
5
Bohemian
from the
Rhapsody 4 times.
There are a lot of movies. You'll be able to watch.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
A lot of movies. I watch Stars Born on.
Not to get too much into airplanes. How does Southwest not have headsets in the back of seats yet?
Because
They never will.
All their
Why
planes are the
not?
same.
Because
All their planes are interchangeable.
But that's like, why would you not just put them in all of them?
Well, actually, at least American and other airlines, they're starting to move their entertainment systems out because everybody brings their own phone or iPad or laptop, and they'd rather just consume content on that.
I'd much rather watch them in the seats.
You're in the minority.
I'd rather do that than hold my phone right here the whole time and listen on my. If I can just plug in my headphones and it's there, all the announcements are right there. So if I hear a ding, I don't have to take my headset off. It's amazing. I love it. The first time I had a movie screen in the back of the seat, I flipped. It was awesome.
I was in the middle of watching a movie on the way to Hawaii, and the young lady in front of me decided, at 5'4", she needed to recline her chair, and now my video screen was at an angle.
Hey, don't make fun of us shorts.
Don't recline your chair, people, more than 2 inches.
Sorry, did not mean to go off on a rant, but anyways, if there's a commitment in the air while I'm flying to Hawaii next week, I'll probably know about it.
There you go. I'm excited for you.
Wrote a story on a baseball game, so I can really pretty much do anything at this point.
You can get a lot done in the air, unless you're fat and you can't get your tray table and it's too close to type on.
Who's that?
That's just a general statement. It's not about anyone.
What about if this said person sits in first class?
Dude,
Is that better?
I was considering getting first class for that flight to Dallas I'm taking for Big 12 Media Day. I couldn't justify.
It was literally 50 extra bucks.
No, it was 130 extra bucks.
Check
$50.
No, you're wrong.
Go to just hold off and wait until you.
Too late.
No, listen to me. Wait until you check in. You go to the airport to print your ticket. Go check, and sometimes they'll have it as low as $35 to upgrade.
I'm also basic economy, so it said no upgrades.
Oh, well, there you go.
It's just
in the back for Riley.
It's just Manhattan to Dallas. We'll be all right.
You're still basic economy anyhow. We're sponsored by the Fridge. They're not basic economy. They're economical to shop there, but nothing basic about the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. It is the biggest and the best liquor store in my life. I was just recalling, I had some friends go to Vegas, that on a previous trip to Vegas, our driver from the airport made a stop. Didn't make us stop. We stopped at a liquor store on the way in. It was a bar and a liquor store by the Hard Rock.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we walk in, and it was a bar that men frequented. Put it that way.
Men.
Yeah, it was near the Hard Rock, which I have now found that has the really the nickname for the area is the Fruit Loop because there's a loop of gay bars. I couldn't believe they called it that. But anyhow,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, the Office stopped. It was a bar, kind of a dive, and the back wall is all liquor. It's behind the wall, behind the bar, but it's all liquor. You just get up there, and they'll sell you lemons and limes, too.
Nice.
Haul it in. The driver carried it to the trunk, put it in there, and then the bellman took it to our room. It's nice. It's the only way to do it. We're sponsored by the Fridge. They're not in Vegas. They're right here in Manhattan, Kansas.
Thank God.
I know. They should be in Vegas. They should go everywhere I want to go, so I have a Fridge.
I love living on that side of town now because I'm going to be honest, it was always hard to get myself to drive to the Fridge from where I used to live because I literally drove by 3 liquor stores on the way to the Fridge. But now, the Fridge is literally the first liquor store I come into contact with.
How about when I gave you the big gift card? It wasn't hard.
Well, that wasn't hard, no.
No, that's motivating.
Actually, it really wasn't that hard because everything, honestly, it was cheaper. Everything that I buy is cheaper at the fridge.
Exactly. And that's
Like,
why you should
and
go to
not
the
like
fridge.
$2 cheaper, like $10 cheaper.
You get great prices, great selection. Get into the fridge. We're here at the WTC Gig Powered Studios. Our friends at WTC have us hooked up with incredible internet. If you can get them, do it. Do it. It's really amazing. And now, speaking of amazing, here's Zach Carlson with your overtime questions from Wabash Station.
From KPB, what's the next type of restaurant that Manhattan needs? As someone in KC, I think barbecue. If I was a millionaire, I'd open one.
You've said it before. We need a hole-in-the-wall barbecue. Cox Brothers is great.
Yeah.
It really is. I love Cox Brothers.
It's the model is they try to evolve it into fast food barbecue that's still really good, and I think they found out it's kind of impossible to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to have a pit boss. You got to know what you're doing. You can't just, it's not like slapping a burger on a grill. Someone needs to know what they're doing that's smoking the meat, and so it's kind of going to be a standalone. It's still really good. We ate it last night. It's really good. But I agree. There's different types of barbecue, different approaches to barbecue. I would love that. Before they turned it into a Jimmy John's, there was a gas station there on Anderson. They took it down and put in a big Jimmy John's. I thought that would have been a great place for a hole-in-the-wall barbecue. You have parking, but you could have some seating and just, pretty much, here's what we got. What do you want? Oh, we're out. We're closed for the day.
I like those types of places.
We've honestly got, yeah, those are good. Zach and I waited, like 2 hours for that one?
Yeah, we show up in the line. They haven't opened. They don't open for an hour. And they're like, okay, the wait time here is like 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like after we open.
It was worth
Well, which one was it?
what was it called?
Franklin.
Yeah. When we were down there in Austin, we
that was the Austin trip.
Everyone's going to complain, oh, why'd you go to Franklin? It's a tourist trap.
That's why we went to Franklin.
It was good.
I would also like a destination barbecue place like Salt Lick in Austin. It's not really even in Austin.
Also very, yeah, you have to drive like an hour.
Yeah, it's farther outside than I thought. And I think something out by the winery, if you could put a barbecue place in up, because if you haven't been to Liquid Art, the winery here in Manhattan, you need to go out there just to see the landscape. It's unbelievable. It's the Flint Hills personified. But to have maybe a barbecue place where a lot of outside seating or windowed seating is all over the place where you can see the views, I think people would go out there.
Honestly, that's probably like the only thing we need. I mean, we've got lots of Mexican restaurants. We've got basically any kind of Chinese you can only do Chinese so many ways. We've got burger places. I can't come up with, anything else we desperately need.
I mean, I'd want it on the border, but that's just personal stuff. I wouldn't say
Carlos
it's the
O'Kelly's
greatest.
is on the border. It's the same thing.
I think on the border is way better than Carlos.
Well, I think it's better, but I certainly don't think Carlos O'Kelly's is bad.
Let's be honest. There's only one franchise operation I want here.
Whataburger.
Salty iguana.
It's not even a franchise yet. Salty iguana. There's some other places I'd take. I'd take a different, even more chicken. That's one thing we don't have is like a mom and pop fried chicken place.
Yeah, we settled. We didn't have a girlfriend, and then we just took the first girl that would agree to go to prom with us.
And it was her Louisiana accent that got us.
Martin? Oh, sorry.
Then we found out she was inconsistent and too spicy at times.
But she was hotter than the other girl that came first.
Yeah, she was kind of a...
It's finger licking good.
Can we get Martinelli's to open up where Wahoo was, right next to Cozy Inn, and just have a little Salina block?
Yeah, I know that.
We have an Olive Garden. I don't know why else you would need anything other than that.
Kind of a true locally owned, regional Italian place would be good. I don't know.
Italian.
Italian.
Spoken like a true Kansas.
Yeah. Italiano.
From EMA09, first trip to Vegas coming up. What's an underrated restaurant or two that won't break the bank?
I meant to look this up.
In-N-Out Burger. There is one on the strip.
There is a White Castle on the strip. There is a Denny's with a wedding chapel, right?
I don't know. I don't need a Denny's.
Speaking of Denny's, when we got into California for the U.S. Open, it was kind of late because, we missed our flight or connecting flight, and In-N-Out was 2 miles away. And there was a Denny's right by our hotel. And My grandpa, who was very tired, where do you think we ended up eating that night? Denny's.
Grand Slam.
Yikes.
I'm
I honestly don't know. Like, the restaurants, when I was there for that basketball tournament a couple years back, we ate, it was Thanksgiving, so we had Thanksgiving dinner at the Joe's or what's it called? It's in Caesar's Palace. Was it Joe's Crab Shack or not Joe's? No, Joe's Crab Shack is the chain one.
Yeah.
It's something very close to Joe's Crab Shack. It's very expensive though, so I wouldn't suggest it. Oh, I went to Guy Fieri. He has a place on the Strip, and that was actually pretty good. Now, I mean,
was that the hamburger place? There's a place in Planet Hollywood. Maybe it's not Guy Fieri.
I don't remember, honestly.
Is there a Planet Hollywood in Planet Hollywood?
I mean, honestly, like, look, here's the thing: is like everything on the Strip is pretty expensive.
Ironically, no.
Like I got a plate of. It was like they were appetizer nachos, but you guys know appetizer nachos. That's a meal.
Yeah.
So I got the nachos. It was like $18 for the nachos, which, like, yeah, you're on the Strip in Las Vegas. Welcome to the Strip. That's what it's going to cost you. But I would suggest eating at that guy because they didn't have like normal drinks on the menu either. They were like pretty wild freaking cocktails. They were something else, like just the weirdest combinations you could ask for. The Bloody Mary was a meal. It literally had a cheeseburger in it. It had a cheeseburger in it.
Well, that's
on it.
Seems healthy. I believe this is a place I've eaten at, Piero's Italian Cuisine. It's down by the Convention Center, which is close to the Westgate, which used to be the Hilton. That's pretty good. Downtown, there's a couple places I've eaten. Well, one place I've eaten I really recommend. It's Oscar's, which is on top of, I can't remember what hotel it is. That used to look right down Fremont. Now they got the damn zip line that blocks the view. That's really cool. It's an all glass. I mean, that restaurant was in. I was just watching Goodfellas. That restaurant's in it. It's really cool. Oscar Steakhouse, Hugo's Cellars in Four Queens. It's really classy, old school Vegas. Tuxedoed waiters. There's some good stuff. You know, just the great thing about Vegas is there's no way to cheat the Yelp or TripAdvisor. There's so many reviews. You can't cheat it. You can't have enough people, your friends, all post nice things. You know, you're going to get thousands of votes. So if you pick an area and you go to Yelp, you're probably going to get a pretty good restaurant and exactly what you want. And then make sure you get the Open Table app so you can just do the reservation right then without having to call or anything. And that also will lead you to some cool places. But it's Vegas. If you want really good, less expensive food, you're exactly right. Get off the Strip. There's great restaurants on the Strip. There's no doubt about it. But you pay for the real estate because they have to pay for their lease. And that's just the reality. But when you get off the Strip, there's not seedy places in Vegas, but just less modern. Feels like more like a place you'd see in Kansas City or anywhere else when you get away from the Strip.
From Wizard 6294, what is the best breakfast in Manhattan?
Chef.
You really like?
I like Early Edition.
I enjoy Early Edition.
I would honestly say that Colbert's breakfast buffet on Sunday was very good.
Yeah, we went at the wrong time, so I can't really judge it.
It was 10 minutes left in the buffet.
Also, you made me eat breakfast at 2 p.m. and
you didn't have to.
I wasn't going to ask for a menu.
You could have.
Oh.
Well, then
I don't know why we're fighting right now.
You'd have been like, "I have to get to the pool. I just need to get out."
I mean, I would have ordered something if there wasn't a buffet. Like,
fair.
We showed up and like, oh, we have a buffet. I'm like, I'll take a look. All right, I'll do it.
I go to the chef. You get breakfast burrito because it's massive and it's delicious and it has the sausage gravy on it. You get the hash browns and you ask them to put sausage gravy on the hash browns, and then you get a manmosa.
There you go.
Which is Busch Light and orange juice.
Becky and I did it again this Sunday. Met a friend. We're going to the chef. Upon her arrival, she realized that there's more people waiting outside than can be seated inside. So they were going to have turntables at least once to get us in. So once again, we ate at Wine Dive, and it is outstanding. And apparently, people are beginning to catch on. Yes, I saw your brothers.
Heard you saw my hungover brother there.
Yeah. So, yep, they were there, and There are a lot of people there. A lot
There
of
was
people
breakfast there?
Yeah, they do a Sunday buffet. Not a buffet, Sunday brunch. Very good.
Question from Itame Bibi. I still need to look up the pronunciation, but he says it is a name taken from the district in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
So you need to get on pronunciation.
So I will look that up.
Like a lot of work.
But he asks, with Bruce out with the U19 team, when do you expect our next commitment coming and who that will be?
I don't think Bruce being with the U19 team has anything to do with it. If I have my timeline correct, he was out there when No, he wouldn't have been. I have that wrong. When's it going to come? Your guess is as good as mine. Nothing's going to happen until after Peach Jam. I don't think that's a thing that'll happen. And that'll be the weekend of the 13th of July. And honestly, the targets that are at the top of the board are probably going to blow up a little bit more after Peach Jam. I would say if one comes decently soon, it won't happen until August. Like that'd be the earliest I would say it might happen. Might be Luke Kazupke. That'd be a good one. I mean, honestly, I don't think any of these guys are close to committing right now, so I'm not really comfortable starting to make guesses or on when or who they're going to be until I get a little bit more clarity.
From I Like Pickles Cat, is Marcus Watts alive? I thought he was going to make a comeback.
Well, I think he's alive. He's been on the road a lot lately. Had the boys some here in the summertime. Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back. And this new setup will allow us much easier when he's out on the road to just pipe him in.
It's also just not... Bringing Marcus on in the summer, I guess it'd be fine, but... You know him. You can only speculate. We can only speculate so much, but it's kind of our job to speculate for 3 months out of the year.
Right, exactly. And when I want him to analyze football when games are going,
right,
and we can talk about it from the standpoint of being a former player.
From Purple Powerhouse, what is your favorite store-bought snack food? His is Crunchy Cheetos.
It's such a tough question, honestly. Like, I know it sounds ridiculous to say that, but like, I shop at gas stations in so many different ways. You know, am I getting a sweet thing? Am I eating salty on the road? I know Zach's.
My favorite snack is goldfish, but I don't exclusively eat goldfish.
You eat those little...
I like white cheddar Cheez-Its.
You eat those Hershey's...
the Reese's.
The Reese's snack pack with like the nuts and chocolate and all that stuff in them. And Zach doesn't just like eat them; he opens them up and downs the bag before we get out of the parking lot.
No, I open the bag and then I as we're driving, I'll I'll put them down my mouth.
They're gone within 10 minutes of leaving the lot, if not. By the time
they're not that big. 10 minutes is nothing.
Jack Links.
Ooh, that's good. Do you remember when Fridge got that beef jerky? That was
so
just
bad.
Awful. Stunk up the car, man.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, my bad.
About my beef jerky choices.
Yeah, I'm a Jack Links beef jerky guy. Traditional, maybe peppered, but yeah.
If I'm getting sweets, I get those little cupcakes, like the...
Little Debbie's?
Yeah, those with like the white swirls on the...
Oh, yeah, I know.
So I get those if I'm getting like sweet things. Salty. Oh, I know. I like it's a mess in terms of having cheesy fingers, but there's no better snack collection out there than Munchies. It's like Doritos, Cheetos, pretzels, Sun Chips, all together. Those Gardettos are trash because of the little brown chips.
Wow, that's a take.
Yes, it is a take.
You'll be issuing an apology tomorrow. I'll have to read a statement. I like Twix, man. If I got a sweet tooth, I'm gonna get a Twix or Sweethearts. But usually, if I want some chocolate, it's Twix.
Twix are clean.
And you know what? I haven't noticed a difference between left and right. It's almost like it's the exact same bar, packaged differently. Huh.
It's almost like they just made a campaign
I
for
think
nothing.
it's kind of inefficient to build two factories next to each other.
You should just make a mega factory, honestly.
Center.
I want center Twix. Only take in the middle.
From Ricky Ticky Tavi, Is this?
He's fairly new. He's only been
new
around
person?
for like a month,
Okay.
I think.
He's new, or is it a new name?
This is his first month on the site.
I haven't changed the name.
You didn't change the name.
I haven't.
Okay.
I haven't changed the name in a
His
while.
little
Welcome,
username
Ricky.
says 1 month. So.
Nice.
Is KPB new too? I don't think I've said that one. And then Matthew KSU 20 from earlier.
I don't know, man. A lot of these names are just.
I don't know.
I see them every day.
Okay.
I'm on the.
All right.
I'm always on the board.
Ricky Ticky Tabby asks, Bill Snyder is obviously a legend, and we owe a lifetime of thanks for making K-State football what it is today. Why does it seem like so much of the talk about him right now still seems so negative?
Because there's only been one statement in 6 months. One interview. It's very awkward exit still.
Well, and I think there's just a contrast now. It was not a graceful ending, and you can blame Gene Taylor, the AD, or Bill Snyder. It didn't really matter. It just wasn't particularly graceful. It was publicly made graceful. Behind the scenes, it really wasn't at all. And I don't think any of us are intending to be negative about Coach Snyder. That's certainly not my intention. But I'm also trying to be realistic. The recruiting sucked. It was always thrown together at the last minute. It went from wanting to evaluate guys through their senior year to not wanting to take the time to do it until the very end. It was like how I did homework in college. And I got okay grades. But I probably would have done a lot better if I'd not put it off to the last minute.
I think once
We're just being realistic.
Yeah.
We're not going to be a cheerleader and say, I'm not going to sit here and say, and I didn't do it when he was coach. I didn't do it when Frank Martin was coach. It's not our job to just say, oh, everything's great. He's wonderful. It's awesome. That's not how we approach things. We're going to be honest. You may not agree with everything, but it's going to be our honest thoughts, and we're not here to promote anything in particular. Things weren't perfect under Bill Snyder. They never were. But now that he's gone, I think there's some sense that, well, he can't make our life miserable anymore. We'll just go ahead and talk about it.
I think once they are up by 14 points on X opponent and Bill Snyder is either shown on the video board on the field or in his suite at the game or whatever, and the crowd cheers, I feel like things will be able to go back to normal. It's just a little bit awkward right now. That's the unfortunate part of it.
From Colorado Cat, sports movie favorites, football, longest yard replacements, North Dallas 40, etc., baseball, Bull Durham, Major League 42, The Natural, Field of Dreams, other sports like golf, Tin Cup, Caddyshack, Legend of Badger Vance.
Some of these are easy. Baseball's Major League for me. Basketball's Hoosiers. Hoosiers is my favorite sports movie.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So
I'm a
those two
big
are
Bull
easy.
Durham
What?
and The Natural fan.
What do you believe in? Sorry.
Remember the Titans.
I have so much trouble deciding on my favorite football movie. There's a lot of good ones out
I don't
there.
think I've actually watched a full baseball movie.
Really?
Really?
Of all of the ones that were listed there, none of them.
Never seen-
I guess I saw The Rookie.
See
but
42.
Angels in the outfield?
No.
You still wave your arms to this day. Stupid.
Let me fire hot take here,
Okay, here we go.
and I'm going to get roasted over this probably. Caddyshack is not the greatest golf movie of all time. I would argue to say, at best, it's a pretty mediocre golf movie. I can't follow the storyline. There's about 5 or 6 different storylines in the movie. It doesn't seem as if any of it gets resolved. It's completely, utterly just insane. The thought of everything in that movie is insane. Like, okay, well, first off, it's like, oh, yeah, he wants to sleep with his granddaughter. Oh, wait, now he's also in the golf tournament. Like, there's and then there's Carl the greenskeeper and the gopher, and there's so much going on in the movie.
You know why?
Why?
There wasn't a script.
Really?
Yeah, they just let guys do their thing. They kind of get
That's awful.
strung together scenes. It made a ton of money, and it's hysterical.
I think I don't disagree that it's hysterical.
Well, that was the point of the
I think
movie.
it gets considered to be a great movie because A, it was really funny. B, like you said, it may have made a lot of money. C, it's so old, and anymore, if you trash on an old movie, you're you're outcast because it's old and how dare you?
Look,
I hate it. I don't hate it.
these movies, Stripes wasn't a war movie. They just use that. You have never seen Stripes?
No.
Holy crap! You need to plug that in. You talk about a movie that has errors in it. It's so funny. There's just stuff that jumps out, but none of those movies. It was all like just a backdrop. I don't consider Caddyshack a golf movie. I consider it a movie about a country club. And there's golf there. I mean, they've got golf in it, but really, it's just the golf course and the country club are really the backdrop.
There's so many storylines.
As a country club tends to have.
It's like the one girl's pregnant and then she's not pregnant, and then it's like, okay, well, what happened to her after that? And they're like, oh, she's not really that much of a character, honestly. It's just kind of a random thing we plugged in.
They just kind of let people run with their roles.
Happy Gilmore's the best golf movie. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Football, honestly, I don't know.
I've never really. None of the football movies really. Stick
I like
with me.
We Are Marshall.
Yeah, because that's just a great, incredible story.
Yeah.
And plus Matthew McConaughey's in it. He's my hero.
He's dreamy.
He's dreamy. He is.
Okay.
From I Like Biggle Scat, last question of the podcast. If you could be a part of any sitcom family, which would it be?
It's a good question. I feel like the Dumfies is the easy answer because of Eric Stone Street. But I guess he's technically not a Dumphy.
Sitcom family.
I think it'd be kind of fun. Well, I guess there's the Sheens from Two and a Half Men.
That'd be a lot of drinking.
Wait, you called them the Sheens?
Well,
I mean,
Charlie Sheen and isn't it? Oh, it's Alan Harper. Damn.
Yeah.
My bad. I thought it was Alan Sheen.
John Cryer and
How do they have different
Martin,
last names? I forget. I forgot. How do they have different last names? They're brothers.
So Charlie Harper. He's not
I
Charlie
thought it was Charlie Sheen in the movie, in the show.
He's in
Charlie
the show,
Sheen is
but
his
he's
real name.
Ah, damn. I'm an idiot.
Man.
I got confused.
That would be fun.
I probably would pick the Jeffersons because I'd be living in a high-rise apartment in the sky, and I'd be moving on up. That was a dated reference neither one of you got.
Nope.
Yeah. Sorry. Does the Brady Bunch count as a sitcom?
Yeah, but you can't hit on your sisters
I wasn't going to hit on my sisters.
or the brothers.
What would you want to do in that family then?
I don't know. I watched a lot of Brady Bunch as a kid.
Yeah. 2.5 Men.
You know, I've been watching some Friends here and there, like they'll pop on. That was a really crappy show.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I watched every episode of Friends when it was live religiously, and now I go back and like, it's really not funny.
I thought I had the hottest take of the day about entertainment. Fitz is going to get roasted for that one.
Well, I think people.
Fitz's statement will be tweeted by the company account tomorrow. We regret our decision.
I have a lot of work to do before vacation, but if you don't think I'm going to build a graphic today with our statement.
My take about Friends.
Why is it not funny?
It's just dumb.
It's hilarious.
Ross is not funny.
Oh, nobody likes Ross. That's the joke.
It still doesn't make him funny.
That's the point.
The women aren't funny. Rachel's just hot. Still is, amazingly.
She's 50 now.
She's actually hotter now than she was in that show.
It's incredible.
That was a trash take, Fitz. That was a trash
Matthew
take.
Perry's funny.
Early Chandler's really funny. Married Chandler isn't that good.
Yeah. I like your.
He got fat.
Your GIF about
Which one?
when I get around new people. Or,
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Chandler. I make jokes when I'm uncomfortable.
Right. And that was the funniest thing. Joey's not funny. They try to make Joey his own show, and it was miserable because he's
I'm not pleased. I'm not pleased at all.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah.
We're going to end on that.
I'm just mad now. I don't know if I can go to lunch with you.
I think you'll get over it. That's it for the Powercat podcast this week from the WTC Gig Powered Studios. I'm not sure. When are we going to do this again?
Not next week. I mean, we could squeeze one in the week after that.
Okay.
What if
unless you guys want to record
What if Fitz and I just have a secret podcast?
secret podcast that I'll definitely know about?
We'll just talk about you the whole time.
Hey, any publicity is good publicity.
I think we're going to have to take next week off, as I, after the French take, will not be allowed on the air. But we'll be back in July at some point with another show of the Powercat podcast. I guess it'll be another episode. I don't know.
What are you going to do when you're suspended?
Probably blow up fireworks.
Powercat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street Publishing.